things are really, really bleak. Like there's so much about poverty and corruption and all these kinds of things. And I was like, well, I grew up in that environment, but I don't remember being as miserable as the textbook is describing. Like it was, I had a really, like we didn't have much, but I had a really I had a valuable, like I had a happy childhood, you know, and so I was like, I also want to change the perception of what it means to make products in Africa. You know, like people always assume that Africa equals charity, and I'm like, no, there is also a capacity to make world-class products, but to be able to do that, someone needs to do the investment, and we all can't just sit around and look and hope for someone to come and do it. We have to actually try and do it ourselves. And so one of the things that was really critical for us was to try as much as possible to not only try to bring the manufacturing process here, but also to upskill the workers, to let them interact with counterparts in Asia and in the US, and just bring them together and for them to see that this is stuff we can do, you know, like it isn't because we can't, it's just because of if you provide the opportunity, you provide the resources, then people can be able to compete. And I think that's been one of the valuable lessons we've learned.
And that's an amazing lesson. And as you said, like there's a lot of brands now that are trying to produce locally so that you can, as you're doing, value also local products, and you can actually build a product like yours that then is renowned worldwide. I just saw that my New Year World just joined us, and I know that this is a colleague of ours from Germany that you're working with, and that you also kind of allowed you to expand in Germany and in other countries outside Africa. And this is, I think, a wonderful lessons for all the entrepreneurs that also watch us, and for it's very inspiring for other entrepreneurs to follow your path, because this local brand of running shoes has been exported and now known all over the world. And that's I think that's a very inspiring story. Can you tell us more? How your internationalization, sorry, but for the accent, journey went. How did you manage to start this exporting journey? I guess you started maybe domestically, like to sell the shoe, but it looked like quite naturally you managed to export in other parts of the world, in Europe, and I guess the US as well.
Yeah, so we actually started up as an export company by default. Like, what happened is we didn't have money to, the capital expenditure was crazy. And so we had to be a bit creative, because going to the banks, traditional finance institutions would ask you for security or something like that, which we didn't have. And so by default, we decided to raise money through online crowdfunding. And so we raised money on Kickstarter, which was a blessing in disguise. Sometimes I'm always saying less is more, because I think if we had the money, we would have put all of it into production. But because we didn't have it, we had to be very creative in terms of how to do it. And so the nature of Kickstarter is that it has an international audience. So you have people from all over the world, primarily the US and Europe. And so when we launched there, we ended up having our customers from different places around the world. Actually, our first Kickstarter we did we had customers from 32 countries around the world, which was another story, a whole story later, because we were just two people trying to do all that fulfillment, and we almost went mad.
I can imagine.
Yeah, and so as a result of the way we started the company through a crowdfunded campaign, we ended up being an export company from the word go. So it sounds really nice when you're thinking about being an export company from the word go, but when you have 32 countries, 32 income tax or customs tax regimes to figure out, customers with different languages, and you're just two people trying to do the packing, the dispatch, the customer service, like it was absolutely a crazy time. And which is why we decided at the end of it all to just focus on a few markets, basically just do less, but do it perfectly, other than doing a lot and then ending up there. And so that's how we started. And as a result, because of how we started like that. We ended up having customers in the US, in Europe, in different parts of Asia, and that's how we did. So we just had to adapt in terms of looking for logistical solutions that would allow us to make sure our customers got what they needed. And so in short, that's by default, that's how we ended up being, as opposed to starting local and then going global. We basically just started off global, but it was a result of scarcity of resources, which basically meant we had to be a bit more creative in terms of how to raise money and get customers.
So exciting. So basically you're telling me that all your initial capital, you got it through Kickstarter, through crowdfunding,
Yes.
not from
Yes.
angel investors, not from...
Sure.
Wow, that's so
Yeah.
amazing. And did you manage, and after that, like at the moment, have you raised money from investors, or are you looking at raising money from investors?
Yeah, we actually raised money and we are now in the process of raising. So after that, we were able to get a few angel investors, and we did get, mostly we've been working with angels. But I think the key thing about this industry is that people are always thinking about the next season. And so we are fundraising to help us get to that point, because for now people are ordering for 2022, whereas where we are right now, we're just able to get what we need and produce for now. And so the fundraising is to help us to get to that point where we are producing seasons ahead, and so that retailers or other people can be able to pre-order in advance. So it is an ongoing process.
Very interesting. Very interesting. And yeah, I just want to remind, because as we're going through the conversation, for everyone that is coming and joining, thank you so much. Very happy to share with you the story of Nava, CEO of Enda. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask it in the chat, and then I'll ask it to Nava so that she can kind of answer all the mysteries around her business. And now I have a question. I'm moving a bit away from funding to focus also on something that I think is very unique of your company, the fact that you're a woman CEO, and you know, it's fitting also perfect with the fact that it's the Women History Month. So I think this is so great that you also managed to be so successful in a male-dominated industry. Can you tell us if you had any, let's say, challenging experiences just due to your gender, or if this was more difficult for you than that you were expecting? I mean, I can, as a female founder myself, that have some nice anecdotes sometimes that I'm sharing, some funny retrospectively, but yeah, I think it's always a bit more challenging when we are women for different reasons. But what is your experience? Was it easier, more difficult, easier on some instances? What can you tell us about that?
I think since we've been mostly an e-commerce company, it hasn't been that difficult. Like, I can't say like going to the factory and stuff like that. Like, we've been mostly e-commerce, and mostly we've been working with independent contractors. And so I feel like I've been lucky because everybody has kind of been doing their job, and I haven't necessarily experienced something that would make me feel like I am different because I'm a woman. So I would say I am lucky in that perspective. But then I think from a concept of running the business, from a concept of having a family and trying to raise kids when you're also trying to put a startup on its feet, that does have its implications in terms of time you spend home, time. You basically need a really strong network of support that will help you basically cover up for the places where you're not able to do that. Like, there's so many things I think that go into making sure everything is going on well at home, and also kind of trying to make sure, for example, the logistics are working and stuff like that. So I'd say balancing those have been the one that have been mostly challenging. But that said, I do also recognize the privilege of having a lot of help and a lot of assistance here at home that allow me to do what I do, because I know someone else or other people are taking care of the other important stuff.
That's good. That's a good news. That's good to share that. I can imagine that you must have actually three full-time jobs. So it must
Yeah.
be very exciting but very challenging. And regarding then the potential growth of your business. So now you were telling me you're
Mhm.
fundraising. What are the key strategic vision that you have for the future? And also given the fact that COVID came, so it must also have challenged you somehow. Maybe you can tell us a bit about that and how it changed or like maybe modify the way you are seeing your business growing moving forward.
Yeah, so the key strategic things we're thinking about is definitely expansion. I still feel like even though the US is our key market, we still have a lot of runners who don't know that we exist.